Hi, welcome to this new Sanctus Library update. We are going to see all the new features and assets in 3.2 version. So if you're ready, let's get started. Now in the add-on parameters, you can find the expansions tab where you can install. For now, we have only one expansion that comes with more than 100 procedural liquid materials and some generators too. These are extra assets. The updates, as you can see, are as usual, but you have the option to also purchase expansions. And as you can see in the add-on panel, you have in materials, this is the expansion, and you have all the materials there. Also in the geometry nodes tab, and you have some generators and objects there. There were fixes and updates to many materials, and I thought to show you just quickly a few of them. The caustics material can now be looped. We can set the loop frame here. And as you can see, if we set the time to 50, you will see that the animation doesn't cut. It's just a loop. Also, I did some changes to the water block. The caustics are also looping, and you can set the frame here. And the same goes for the animation. Let's change this to make it easier to see. 50, 50. And you can see how it loops. It also works for the floating objects, for example. Let's move this to a collection. Now, if we set that collection to a floating collection, we will see the monkey. So we can set the number of rotations for the loop. It will turn very quickly, but it will be looped. If we can set this to maybe 150. Or if you prefer, you can make it rotate randomly. Let's change it back to 50, 50, and here random rotation. So now it will be basically in place. So everything can be looped now. Most building materials now have the option to rotate the texture of the material. We cannot see this, but if you have out of bounds basically UVs, before it was not working, and now it works. If, for example, in this case, the parts that go to the negative side of 0, here, they had no tiles in many of the materials, and now it works. And now basically every material that has tiles or breaks has this feature and works correctly with negative values in the UV map. There's a new feature to rotate decals while you place them with Control and the mouse wheel. That adds to the Shift and mouse wheel to scale them. While baking decals, the calculations were reworked, so they work better, for example, on a 40-meter object and then the 10-centimeter object, for example, and they bake correctly. You can also override the automatic calculations and set the ray distance that is projected to the surface of the object. So in this case, it's 2 centimeters, but you can change it. Of course, if this is 3 meters, for example, it will bake in this phase, but also on this one, because this is 2 meters in distance. So now you have more control while baking on very different scale objects. I also did some changes in the decal baking system. Before, we had a baking process for each of the decals placed on an object, and now all the decals bake in the same process making it way faster. This was added in the 3.1.1 minor update. We now have an icon that shows the materials that require UVs. Okay, we have a new material that it's a UV checker. You can check your UVs, and for example, you can change the icon to be a cross or an arrow to check the direction. Patterns for the colors. You can change it to checkers where you can set the two colors here or the pattern. There are new brush metals here, but this was a request and they are UV based. This gives you control over the direction of the brush. So if you use it here, we will have to UV unwrap this correctly. We can use, for example, Smart UV project. We will have to set the direction. For example, in this case, I want it in this direction. So I will rotate. And now it goes how I wanted. I created a new wood texture for two materials that I created for this update. Here is the Chevron material. As you can see, I created this new texture or pattern. Well, as usual, you have a lot of parameters to play with. Herringbone material. One of my favorites so far. I think it looks really, really nice. Different colors. We also have a damaged concrete. With different sorts of damage to the concrete, to the surface. We have a lot of new paper materials. Let's see a bit some of them. We have the graph paper. And for example, if you want to change the scale of this, let's scale on X. You will have to adjust. In this case, it's 2 meters by 1.5. So we have to do the same in the material mapping. So we can adjust here around 1.3. Holes can be controlled here. You can set the amount. And you can change the scale, the offset, or remove them completely. There's also a burn effect. And you can change the type if it's from all the borders or one side or a mix of both. And the angle. We also have the paper with lines. It has basically the same controls, but we also have now the margin, position, and a margin on top and bottom. There's also craft paper. You can see there's some texture here and some particles from the paper. And there are also some film materials that we will see when we are reviewing the new generators. We also have a smart rubber material. With a lot of parameters. And it comes with a few presets. This is probably my favorite tool from this update. You can change basically any surface into a tile surface from simple shapes like this one, and you can change the shape and it will adapt and more complex shapes like this one. And we can see how it works in real time. As long as you have flat faces, you can basically do whatever you want. If you're interested in what's going on, we have each island separated by angle. We have these like walls of tiles. We find the middle point of each of the islands. We add instances on each of those. Then we align the tiles so they can match between walls and floor and everything to a 3D grid, because we have to do it in the local space, and this was the best way I found to do that. And then we use a boolean to cut them, and we are also creating the in-between material of the tiles. And here we create the gap between islands. And well, that's the final result. We have the fill volume. We have to create something to use as instance. I will use a monkey. And I will move it to a new collection. We'll hide that collection. We apply this to the mesh. Go to the tab. I have to select an instance collection. And there we go. And we can change the shape. If we check this, you will see the bounce of the volume. And you can change the shape. And everything will adapt. If we use multiple objects in the collection, it will work better with objects of the similar dimensions, because it will use the largest object to calculate the distances. You can always adjust a bit the rotations, position, and the seed here. This is the stacking volume, and also was a request. In this case, I'm using it to create stacked containers on a warehouse or whatever. And this is my object that I will use as the volume. I apply this. It will tell me to select the object to instantiate. Here I will select my container. The changes will be in real time if you want to change anything. Let's say this face. Or you want to extrude this part. We have three new assets here that are different types of piles of paper or folders, and you can add them to the scene, change the count. You can change the rotations, probabilities of rotation, random position, overall scale. The minimum separation is if you want to use, for example, a plane that has no height in the z-axis, it will set a minimum so they don't overlap. You can use whatever you want. If you want to create your own, you can add books, magazines, or whatever, throw them on a collection and change the collection here. Let's move this and we'll add the papers. Also, and there's also one that it's just folders. And there's also a seed to have different results. We have a right on surface, a new generator. We select the object where we want to place it, click the button, and you drag it to your object. You can edit the text here. This symbol BR will create a line break. If you go to the Geometry Nodes tab, you can click the cross and then select a font from your local drive, whatever you want. You can, for example, let's add another one. They get parented to the object, so if you move the object, it will move with them. And for example, here we can try something like more like a marker. It can adapt to surfaces with a certain limit. For example, let's try it here. And here. We also have the wrap collection. We're going to move these three objects to a new collection. And I will add this. Let me move them a bit. Add this and select that collection. And it will wrap everything on a plastic wrap. Here we can see those materials that I was talking about, the fabrics. Here we have different colors. We can import this material and change it here. Import. You can always move the objects and it will hold pretty well. This is at what point the vacuum, basically, or the bending towards the inside happens. We also can do it the other way. It will work better with objects that are not that sharp, like this plane here, as you can see. We can replace that. Let's add like ecosphere. Scale it down. We also have in materials, those that also look interesting. And we also have a variation of this that works directly on objects. For example, here, apply to mesh directly, and you can see. And again, you can change the material. Okay, I hope you enjoyed this new update. Thanks for watching, and see you on the next one.